Welcome to my channel. I'm Chris, and today we have a different type of video, because today I'm telling you the top 10 reasons to not move to Seattle. While I really love Seattle, and I'm generally really positive about things and think it's like the most beautiful state in the country, I have to be honest with you, it's not all sunshine and roses. Literally. If you want to hear why you should live in Seattle, I'm actually making a video on that in the future, so definitely stay tuned. But today, here are my top 10 reasons to not move to Seattle. Number 1. The rising cost of living. This first one you probably could have predicted. Just like most major cities on the West Coast, Seattle is expensive. And it's not getting any cheaper. Currently, Seattle rent sits at $2,169 per month. It's been growing steadily since the 1980s. Just check out the Seattle Times newspaper article from 2017. Back in 2017, people were complaining about rent that cost $1,600 per month. Today, I would absolutely love that kind of rent. But also, if you look back at 2011, you can see that the average Seattle rent was around $1,000 flat. So in the past 10 years, Seattle rent has doubled. I really hope it doesn't double again in the next 10 years, but there are a lot of high-paying jobs out there due to the tech industry, which is great for those getting the jobs, but it's also bad for anyone left out of the tech industry and who doesn't have a high-paying job. For reference, the average rent in the USA ranges from $900 to $1,200 a month, depending on which news source you look at. So we're about double the national average here in Seattle. But at least we aren't as bad as San Francisco. They pay about $1,000 more per month on average, and they have a state income tax. Although they do get more square feet of space than we do, but actually more on that later. Otherwise, if you want to talk about overall cost of living, Seattle is about 35.7% more expensive than the rest of the country. And this cost of living, it just keeps going up and has caused many issues. Particularly, it leads to higher levels of homelessness because people can't afford to live in the area. And that actually leads right into my next point. Number 2, the large homeless population. High cost of living and the pandemic has had a huge impact on the number of homeless throughout Seattle. With inflation and the rising costs, this problem is only getting worse. Currently, Washington State has the 5th highest homeless population in the nation, and Seattle specifically has the 3rd highest homeless population of all major metro areas in the USA. And it really isn't a competition that you want to be winning. The only metro areas that beat out Seattle are New York and LA. But then New York and LA also have upwards of 15 million people, and Seattle, don't quote me on this, but I think the entire metro area has only around 6 million. Outside of numbers from my personal experience, if you go anywhere downtown, you're bound to see homeless. Even with all their rainy weather, they really don't have anywhere else to go, and you'll see them sleeping in the streets. It's really sad because I don't think anyone in the government really cares to do anything about it, and I feel like there should be more initiative to get them out of the streets and out of the bad weather. I really don't feel like much is being done. There are charities and organizations within Seattle that are trying to help, but there's still a long way to go. The homeless situation in Seattle is a big crisis, and if you want to read up about it, the Seattle Times actually summarized it way better than I could in this article. I'll go ahead and link it down below in case if you want to check it out. Otherwise, let's go ahead and move on to the next part. Number 3, it rains a lot. Honestly, this is something you probably already know. Seattle is in the Evergreen State, and it's not called the Evergreen State because of its dry weather. As you can see, for most of the days from late October to late April, it'll be rainy. And there's a nice short time where you do get some dry weather and it's a lot sunnier, and that's July, August, September, and people definitely enjoy that, but that doesn't last for very long. And actually, as I'm recording this looking outside, it's currently raining, although it's a slight drizzle. And that is one thing that you should know, is that Seattle doesn't have large downpours like in other states. When it is raining, it's generally just a light drizzle, and only every once in a while is it a more significant rainfall. Although, to be fair, depending on who you are, some may see rainy weather as a positive, because honestly, who doesn't love to sit indoors with a cup of coffee or tea and watch the rain? Although, if you don't like the rain, Seattle probably isn't the place for you. And with rain, you also get number 4, the gloomy weather. Rain is great and all, but having non-stop cloudy days can get a little tiring on the eyes. Seattle only has around 88 completely sunny days a year, so when you do see the sun, it really is something special. Otherwise, Seattle is generally pretty cloudy, and often these clouds don't come with any rain. So if you do plan on moving out here, don't plan on long summer days with pool parties, and do plan to stock up on vitamin D. On the bright side, or I guess actually the dark side, at least you won't get sunburnt if there's no sun.
Nice.
And number 5, everything is crowded. This might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but from my experience, most of the cool things to see in and around Seattle are crowded. This includes parks, hiking trails, restaurants, and even small towns outside of the city. And by small towns, I specifically mean Leavenworth. If you go to Leavenworth at any point during the fall or winter, there will be large crowds. And a lot of these crowds are actually both locals and tourists. While this is good for small business, and it's nice to know that people really appreciate the area, it does make it hard to get away from everything. So if you want to avoid crowds, you'll definitely need to show up early on a weekday and plan ahead. Because one thing you should know is that at some restaurants, you really do need to make reservations a month in advance. Also, as a pro tip, if you ever want to visit Pike Place and are driving there, you might just want to find a parking space several blocks away. That is, unless if you really enjoy spending 20 to 30 minutes to find a tight parking spot on the side of a hill. Number 6, the big one. Off the coast of Oregon and Washington is the Cascadia subduction zone. Every 250 years or so, there's a massive earthquake generated from this subduction zone, and to put it lightly, we are due for this earthquake any day now, and it won't be a fun time.
When that tension is released, the resulting earthquake is likely to be as large as a magnitude 9. That will be 45 times more powerful than California's most destructive quake in 1906.
I'll actually spare you the details because PBS and Nova both have amazing documentaries on this issue, and they're on YouTube. And it's definitely something you should check out rather than listen to me ramble, because I'll pretty much be just regurgitating what they say, but when I say it, it won't sound as nice. Although, to be honest, this is something that I actually do find concerning because it's something that is guaranteed to happen sometime in the future. And if you plan to live in Seattle, there's a chance it'll happen while you're here. Number 7, traffic. Seattle has one major highway running straight through it, and it's the I-5. I-5 almost always has traffic. It really doesn't matter what time of the day. Although it should 100% be avoided at any time between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's rush hour, and I really wouldn't go there unless if you really like sitting in a very slowly moving parking lot. To be fair though, I've lived in both Chicago and near the Bay Area, and the traffic from I-5 isn't quite as bad as traffic in Chicago and the Bay Area. Everyone who lives here seems convinced it's the worst in the country, and it is bad, but in my experience, it's not as bad as other metro areas I've been to. That being said, Seattle is a growing city whose original architects had no idea it would grow to its current size. Because of this, Seattle is ill prepared for future population growth, and every year traffic issues are guaranteed to get worse. Even if it isn't as bad as other areas, it'll probably catch up within the next decade or so. Number 8, Seattle apartments are small. So back when I was apartment searching in Seattle, one of the first things I noticed is that Seattle apartments felt much smaller than those in Chicago. It was really weird to me, but apparently I was actually onto something. Seattle on average has the smallest rental apartments in the United States. It even beats New York. Just looking up online to figure out how much smaller. In Manhattan, the average apartment size is 733 square feet. Meanwhile, in Seattle, the average apartment is 711 square feet. As this news article so proudly proclaims, Seattle boasts the smallest apartments in the country. Although I really don't think this is something to be that proud of, because rent is already high here, and that just means that we get less bang for our buck. We're not even as crowded as places like New York or Chicago, and yet for whatever reason, Seattle has smaller apartments than less denser and larger cities. From my experience also doing both apartment tour videos and living in Seattle, if you want anything over 1,000 square feet, you better be prepared to cough up over 4,000 per month. So yeah, housing, it isn't fun here, but at least everyone's happy out here. Number 9, Seattle residents are depressed. Remember to take your vitamin D here because seasonal depression is no joke. There are sun lamps you could buy, but in general, Seattle has a lot of depressed people. According to some statistics, almost half of the adult population has felt depressed at some point. And you can't blame people because winters can get dark here and you can go days without seeing the sun. Although, statistics can be misleading, and I don't know how much I trust this because a lot of people that I meet do seem pretty happy. And that actually brings us to the next point. Number 10, the Seattle freeze. So you just moved to Seattle and you want to make friends. Well, Seattle is known for the Seattle freeze. And this is the case where people claim that people in Seattle aren't quite as friendly to outsiders and aren't as willing to make new friends. I honestly can't confirm if this is true, but people love to talk about how hard it is to make friends with people in Seattle, and whether it's because everyone already has their established friend groups or because the rest of us are socially awkward, in my experience, most people in Seattle are actually pretty friendly. But I will admit, most of the friends that I have here and that I actually hang out with are people that I knew before moving here. And since moving here, I can't say that I've made any real friendships, but also a large part of that is because I split all of my time in between work, eating out, and making YouTube videos. And it is a little bit harder just because of COVID-19, and there are still some restrictions, but if you are moving here, I wouldn't be too upset about this. All it really takes is just joining clubs and organizations and putting yourself out there. Anyway, that's my top 10 reasons to not move to Seattle. Sorry to be such a downer today. If I'm being honest, I do believe that most of these issues are relevant, and you should know about them if you're considering moving here or going here for college. But in my experience, the positives of living here far outweigh the bad. I really do love living out here, and I also know that just presenting the positive side of things can be a bit deceiving. Like anywhere, Seattle has its positives and its negatives. So I really hope you enjoyed today's videos, and if I forgot anything or there's something that you think I got wrong, definitely let me know down in the comments. And also, be on the lookout for when I post the 10 reasons why you should move to Seattle. I'm excited for that video, and it's coming up soon, although by soon I do mean in a month or so. It does take me a while to make videos. But that's all. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Please like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.